light. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hot, hot, hot.
Today, we're going to make this out of this so that we can do this. Okay, so here is our first press. Gonna give it a shot here. And, oh yeah, that's nice. That's real nice. Wow, I think that's better than my last press. So you can look at that up close. I'm just waiting for the burner to heat up one more time. Okay, so what is going on in this scene? We have a foam hot press that we'll be making in this project build as a two-part project build, and it is sitting atop a red hot portable stove burner. I chose a portable one just in case people might have gas stoves or just want to take the fumes that are created from this project outdoors, like with an extension cord, that type of thing. And the press is pressing into a sheet of black foam board. And this is the kind of foam board used for home projects or craft projects or school projects with the paper peeled off one side. Learned that from DM Scotty. And as you can see, the press really can press out sheets very, very fast. I got it down to about 9 minutes a sheet. Now, at first, originally, I was using this technique right here, where it's a white sheet of foam core from the dollar store with one side of paper peeled off and a pen and etching tool. And I learned this method from DM Scotty in the DM's Craft. In fact, I learned most of my chops from DM Scotty that first year, and DMG and all the other great crafters out there. But I wanted to find a faster way to do the foam blocks and foam things like that. And so I came up with this idea of the press. And in this shot, I'm super happy because I just pressed out 10 sheets, the most I'd done, in about an hour and a half, and realized that this method really works well. The sheets cut out, carve out real nice and go onto cardboard. I had to learn new adhesion techniques because there's so much space to cover. And it allows for large project builds like this. Now, ignoring the terrain scatter and looking mainly at the shelves, the wrap around the towers, and the flat wall facades, that is basically the press effect that we'll be doing in this tutorial, all these stone block with the hot press. And so I basically wanted to show what this hot press is and what it can do. It's such an excellent resource, extra resource in my crafter toolbox, and I just wanted to get it out there and share it with people on the net because I'm just having such a great thing with it in my crafter zone. So, all right, and it is time to move on to the actual tutorial, and so let's roll it. Phase 1.
Cutting up the tray.
Okay, so here we are at the craft table, and I'm going to go through the workflow and tools needed for this project. It starts with this paint tray, for lack of a better material. If you find one, please leave it in the comments down below. I tried flashing, I tried a few different things. This was exactly the right thickness and cutability to do at home, and it just seemed to work out. It's a paint tray from Walmart. I think I bought it for you know, $3 and change, something like that. And we're gonna chop this up into 16 pieces, to be precise, that look like just like that. And these 16 pieces are going to make this lattice of 8 columns and 8 rows that will be our hot press to make the brick pattern. So now looking at this a little bit up, let me check the camera. There we go. Yeah. So what we have here is, if you notice, there's like a black outline around this, and that is because I took a Sharpie and I traced around it to get all the pieces out of the pan. And the way I cut this pan up is, I'm gonna kind of run through that right now, because later on in the video I'm gonna be going in like a berserker mode, the fast forward mode, so it's gonna be, just in case there's something missed or anything, I just want it to be super clear right now. And so we're gonna cut this tray up into pieces. Every piece is gonna be exactly this size, and we're gonna cut one there, 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 and there, and that's 5 so far. And there is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and make sure I'm doing this in the camera right. There we go. And 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 pieces right there. You could get a 17th piece right here. See, there we go. Yep, 17th piece right there. You know, and that's kind of cool because we only need 16, and in case we ding up an edge or something, we got one more to work with. So that's cool. And so that is how we'll cut this tray up and make the form. And also for tools needed, we'll be needing some thick padded leather gloves to make sure we don't, cut ourselves with all the metal. And we'll need some tin snips, craft scissors, a Sharpie, and here's 2 types of pliers, pointed and regular. And then with the pointed pliers in the headlamp and the hammer, we'll be using that in the 3rd portion when we assemble the pieces. And also another thing that we will need for this this project build is it would be handy if we had a jig like this, a jig or fixture, whatever you like to call it. It is real simple to make. It's just cardboard, and this is foam right here, and then we have like hot glue right there. And to make this, we will be needing, of course, foam and cardboard, and then a hot glue gun, a utility knife or cutter, and some hot glue. Now, the purpose of this jig is basically for ease of assembly in the 3rd portion of our project build, where we assemble all the pieces. So if you look at this image right here, you'll see that all the slats kind of fit in there, and the jig really changes the game on ease of assembly. And from there, let's take a look at this is going to be the specs for like the cardboard that we'll need to make this thing. So you got the 3 pieces of cardboard, the main base, and then the 2 sides. One side will be kind of special, you'll see in a sec. And then also there are the dimensions for the foam blocks here, and that is this. And then coming back to the table here, we have here are the pieces right here. And so we have the foam and the cardboard. This will be a backing plate. It won't come into play until we get into the assembly itself. But this piece right here, I want to point out, it has 8 8 pen marks, 8 lines across it, and they are precisely 1/2 inch apart. So there's 8 of them and they're 1/2 inch apart, so you'll want to make one of the pieces have that. And it is basically to use as divider lines to put all the pieces, and every piece is short 1/16 of an inch, and that will give the play to fit pieces in between, and we'll take a look at that in a second. So let's throw this together. It's just take like 10 or 20 seconds in berserker mode. Let's throw this thing together, and then we'll take a look at it, and then we'll cut up the tray. So here we go. Here we have the jig, and it is complete, and it is time to kind of check it before we get to the next step. And basically what we have here is apologies in advance. In the next thing where we cut up the tray, I actually started measuring with one of these. You're not going to have a piece of metal yet because you haven't cut up the tray. So basically you're going to have this, something along the lines of this, which is a piece of cardstock. This is specifically the back of a microwave dinner. Could be any sort of stiff paper, whatever. As long as it is to the project specifications, we're good. And it's about the same thickness as the aluminum. So, like, I just am checking the jig to make sure all the slats would fit in there nicely during the assembly part of this. Basically, I'm making sure that there's no hot glue gumming up or getting in the way for when we try to fit that in. That being said, it's looking good, and the jig is done. The jig is up, and we are ready to go on to cutting up the tray, so let's go berserk.
Phase 2.
Prepping the pieces. The table has changed, but the players remain the same.
Okay, so what I wanted to do right now is go through the think tank thought process of this project. Cutting up the paint tray, we created these 16 identical pieces. But at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to take them and separate them into 3 different types of pieces. And simply put, it's just the basic 3 pieces that would be needed to make a press like this. So you're going to need one set of about 8 of these that are going to go straight across like that. And then you're going to need 2 sets of 4 that are going to alternate with high and lows. So I labeled these 1, 2, and 3. And what you have here is basically all the ones. And then here's the 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, alternating. So that is basically how this situation is going to play out. So I didn't like the lighting in that last section, so I just wanted to drive it home here. Here are the number 1 pieces, and notice that all the cuts are facing up. All the cuts in these animation are exaggerated, but they're facing up. Here are the number 2 pieces, and all the cuts, tabs, are facing down, and that is how they fit into the number 1s. And you'd put the first number 2 in, then the second, third, and fourth number 2 into this mix right here. And then here entering the scene are the number 3s. Now notice, again, the tabs are facing downward, but they're, opposite the number 2s as they fit into the press. And then this would be the 5th piece, the 6th, 7th, and then 8th final piece that you'd put into the press in that order respectively. And so here I'm just kind of flipping it over just to kind of show the relationship between the 1s, 2s, and 3s and why they create this brick/stone pattern. And by the way, I keep saying brick throughout the video here and there, but I would imagine at the scale of our miniatures and our tabletop gaming, and it'd be more like a stone block, so hence the name for the video. And so that's that. We're about to start prepping the pieces, but first I would just like to take a look at this piece of our target material. It is an unpainted piece of black foam core that has been cut out from one of those big sheets that you saw earlier in the video being pressed by the hot press. And I bought this at Walmart. It is Elmer's brand, like the glue, and it's about 3/16 of an inch thick. Now, when we bend these tabs back on these pieces, all these pieces will go through the phase of being a number 1, and then eventually these 2 sets are going to become a number 2 and 3, and we'll bend these back. Notice that these tabs are bent back to about a 1/2 inch. Then after that 1/2 inch, there's another 1/4 inch where there's little angled cuts on them, and that is to make this thing work out all together. Those angled cuts make the pieces possible to get in. I tried it without them, didn't happen. Like it just would not go. So those angled cuts go another 1/4 inch, so that's a full 3/4 inch from there to there. At that point, there's one more 1/4 inch of the cut. And in that 1/4 inch, and that is the whole reason I'm taking a moment here to show you, that 1/4 inch is where all these pieces actually touch and contact and come together in this lattice. In that 1/4 inch with 64, I think it's 64, 8 times 8, yeah. 64 contact points, that is where all the structural stability of this, after being tapped in with the hammer, pulled in and adjusted with the needle nose pliers here, that is where all the structural stability lies, in just a 1/4 inch of all that meeting point. It's just something I thought was kind of important to mention before we start prepping these pieces, so that you can consider that as you cut and make these. Okay, so we'll go over prepping the pieces here. And so here we have a standard that I like to use, and we'll use that on all of these pieces. And if you notice that there's little tick marks every 1/2 inch, and this standard is to the same size as all the other pieces in the project, and so we'll have that. Okay, so we're gonna take our first piece. It's gonna be one of our number 2 pieces, because that will kind of exemplify all the things we need to do to any piece. It'll have a little bit of each phase in it. And here I'm just putting that right against the standard, and I'm just taking those little tick marks, just transferring them over with the Sharpie there. And that will, I just try to minimize all the measuring with rulers. Like, rulers can get kind of clumsy when you have this much stuff to measure. And so, yeah, so we have that. And again, I noticed that I'm kind of just eyeballing a lot of the stuff. I'm not, if you feel you need to, draw the lines over the pieces, with the Sharpie, and, measure everything out just like the diagrams. But really, I just eyeball, and as I'm cutting these, I just cut them just a little over the halfway point of, the width of each piece, and that it just seems to work out. That's what I did the first time, and as I'm showing you guys this stuff, for this project build, it worked this time around also. And so yeah, we were just basically, out of this number 2 piece, we're basically making a number 1 piece, but we'll do the other adjustments to it. But every piece is going to go through this exact process right here and become a number 1. So that's that. Okay, so now we're going to take our number 2 piece here, and we're going to turn it into an actual number 2, and we're going to bend all these tabs back as I was talking about earlier. So just take the pliers, the flat-nosed ones, and just simple as that. You just bend them back. I take the pliers and I kind of flatten things out as I go along. You want all the pieces to be as flat as they can be to fit into each other. It's just, it just makes everything go together well. And this is a fairly simple process. Basically, you just go every other one. Now, the number 2s, they start on the bending the tabs back on the outside edges there. For those number 3s, they kind of start bending the tabs back on the inside of it, so to speak. So after I finish bending all these back, notice that I'm doing this, and I do this kind of outside of the scenes that I've filmed, just a hair, where I take the pliers and I kind of flatten the piece out a lot as I do it. So that's the number 2, but we haven't put the little angled cuts on, so now we'll do that. And again, I'm just eyeballing it, and basically by the end of the cut, by the end of the angle, I try to get to the halfway mark on the piece. And I'm just kind of just guesstimating. I try not to overcut. If you overcut, you're going to create extra channels as the pieces fit into each other that they could kind of get tangled up in. So I try not to overcut. I tend to just by the pressure you put on the scissors, I actually overcut a lot. If you need to, I don't show it in here, but if you need to, you can kind of like run the scissors along the main groove of the pieces where they're supposed to fit into each other to kind of re-emphasize the main cut, so to speak, so that when they fit into each other, they tend to go into those. But it's not too big of a deal. You just kind of work it. We'll get to that in the assembly phase anyway. So that's pretty much it. And again, notice I'm flattening everything out. The scissors kind of create little crook marks or crook edges, so I use the pliers to flatten everything out. So when you have a number 2 piece, it is done. It would be just the same as a number 3, just the tabs would be alternating. It's the same technique, and so that is complete, and that is a fine specimen right there of a number 2. So there we have it. And so let's see. After that, basically, we're going to take every piece on this board and we're going to turn it into a number 1. And then after we've done that, we're going to turn them into number 2s and 3s, these 2 groups into number 2s and 3s. So let's go to town. So that concludes part 1 of our project video build. Feel free to follow along on Terrain by Trigue channel with the part 2 where we assemble the pieces and test the press. If you like the video, please hit the like button or subscribe. And hey, thanks for watching. Hope to see you on the next one.